Mexico is feeling the wrath of a powerful drug cartel after an army operation resulted in the death of its leader, known as El Mencho. He was one of the most
violent and ruthless. El Mencho, the leader of Mexico's billion-dollar CJNG cartel, is dead after a daring capture-kill operation by Mexico.
In the early hours of the morning, a man who'd been the world's most wanted fugitive for years finally fell. Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, aka El Mencho, the mastermind behind the rise of a giant cartel called CJNG. He was killed in a military operation described as one of the biggest blows to international drug networks ever. But his death, that wasn't the end of the story. Honestly, as soon as the news broke, the streets went up in flames. Airports were grounded, and major cities just went silent out of pure fear. Cars were torched, roads were blocked, and everyone was told to stay inside. It's like the world was watching how the fall of just one leader could shake an entire country. So, is this the beginning of the end for Mexico's most aggressive cartel? Or is it just a new, even more violent chapter? Today, we're breaking down the topic everyone's talking about, the death of El Mencho, Mexico's most wanted international fugitive. Early Sunday morning, February 22, 2026, the small town of Tapalpa in Jalisco was still quiet. The mountain air was freezing and the streets were basically empty. But while most people were fast asleep, a massive secret military operation was already underway. Mexican special forces were moving fast toward a hideout where they believed El Mencho was staying. You know him, the leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, or CJNG, one of the most powerful and honestly most terrifying cartels in Mexico. This wasn't just a random raid though. The Mexican government apparently had high-level intel from the US. Everything, his movements, the exact hideout, the perfect timing, it was all mapped out. The target was clear: take down the man who'd been a top-tier fugitive for years. As the troops closed in, things got intense, fast. Armed guards protecting El Mencho started fighting back. Gunfire shattered the silence of the night, and it was a heavy, violent shootout. According to official reports from the Mexican Defense Ministry, 4 cartel members were killed right there. El Mencho himself was shot and seriously wounded, while 3 others at the scene were in bad shape. After they took him down, El Mencho was rushed onto a plane to Mexico City for emergency care. But it was too late. His injuries were just too critical, and he was pronounced dead on the way. The announcement came out shortly after. The government called it one of the biggest wins in the fight against drug trafficking, especially for the billion-dollar fentanyl flow into the states. Now, El Mencho wasn't some new face in the crime world. Born in Jalisco to a simple family, he actually worked as a laborer in the US before getting dragged into the cartel life. His criminal career took off fast. He was involved with older drug groups before finally starting CJNG and building it into this massive, scary powerhouse. Under his lead, CJNG became known for being aggressive, expanding way too fast, and never hesitating to use violence. The US government even put a multi-million-dollar bounty on his head for anyone who could help catch him, but for years, he always managed to slip away. Before his name was at the top of every international most wanted list, El Mencho wasn't always this big crime boss. Here's the crazy part: he actually used to be a local cop in Mexico. But things took a turn. He ditched the uniform and stepped right into the world of drug trafficking. At first, he joined criminal groups that were already established. That's where he learned the ropes, how the drug networks worked, how stuff was distributed, how they guarded their turf, and honestly, how to handle their enemies. Once he felt powerful enough, he helped form CJNG and slowly took total control. And under his thumb, CJNG grew fast. Like, in a super short amount of time, this group went from being just a local gang to a massive national and even international organization. El Mencho was known for being a leader who was tough and totally uncompromising. Under his command, CJNG used a really brutal approach to keep their territory and crush anyone who stood in their way. This cartel, they basically operate with full military-grade gear. I'm talking automatic weapons, bulletproof vests, and even homemade armored vehicles. And they're not shy about showing off their power either. They've dropped propaganda videos for everyone to see. Some reports even mention they use modern tech in their ops, like drones modified to carry explosives and landmines planted just to mess with security forces. This is exactly why CJNG is known as one of the most tech-savvy and well-armed cartels out there. But CJNG doesn't run like your typical criminal group. Their organization is, honestly, super organized. They have specific territories, field commanders, and a very disciplined communication system. Every area has a trusted person reporting directly to the top. This kind of setup lets the cartel move fast and makes them really hard to take down. Like, if one area gets hit, the others just keep going. That's a huge reason why CJNG was able to expand so much. Because of his role in international drug trafficking, El Mencho became the #1 target for both Mexico and the US. The US government even put out a massive $15 million reward for anyone with info that could lead to his capture. $15 million, just imagine that. That number alone shows just how much power he really had in the global drug trade. I mean, he was on the world's most wanted list, right up there with the biggest crime bosses in history. For years, he was a ghost. His movements, impossible to track. He almost never appeared in public and stayed totally off the grid. And honestly, the less he was seen, the more his legend grew. It didn't take long for the news of El Mencho's death to hit. Within hours, the entire vibe across the country shifted. Just like that. CJNG members and their supporters started moving immediately. And honestly, their tactics aren't exactly new. They hit the streets, torched cars, and blocked off major highways. The goal was simple: spread fear and show everyone they're still in control. In San Francisco del Rincon, Guanajuato, an OXXO convenience store was caught on camera completely burned out. There was even this one guy just riding his bike past the charred building like it was nothing. It's wild how fast things went from normal to absolutely terrifying. Reports say over 250 different spots were blocked off across 20 different states. You could see fires everywhere. From Puerto Vallarta in Jalisco all the way to Michoacan, the sound of random gunfire just filled the air. In just one day, the chaos spread to at least 6 states: Jalisco, Colima, Michoacan, Nayarit, Guanajuato, and Tamaulipas. Daily life just stopped. Cars were left burning in the middle of the road. Trucks were used as roadblocks, and getting in or out of the cities was basically impossible. But the place that felt it the most? Guadalajara. It's the capital of Jalisco and the main headquarters for CJNG. Usually it's this bustling, crowded city, but suddenly it went dead silent. The ghost town vibe was real, and honestly, the fear was everywhere. By nighttime, it felt like a ghost town. The streets were empty and everyone was just hiding inside. Schools were canceled, malls closed early, and public transit just completely stopped. You could see cops guarding charred cars in the middle of the road. Meanwhile, rumors of armed groups moving through the city kept everyone terrified. Finally, the Jalisco government declared a state of emergency, or what they call a code red. They told everyone to stay inside until things were under control. And get this, even the preparations for the 2026 World Cup, with some matches planned for Guadalajara, got hit by this. People are seriously starting to worry if the city will even be safe by then. Because, let's be real, CJNG isn't just some small gang. They're based in Jalisco, but their reach is massive, all over Mexico and the international black market. They're the ones moving fentanyl, meth, and cocaine into the US, Europe, and even Asia. Their organizational structure is honestly so organized. We're talking regional divisions, field commanders, and a super disciplined internal comms network. A lot of their members show up in full military gear, automatic weapons, tactical vehicles, the whole thing. And their power? It doesn't just come from drugs. CJNG is involved in money laundering, extortion, fuel theft, and even human smuggling. This whole dark business generates massive amounts of cash. Plus, they're known for using extreme tactics to crush their rivals and the authorities. Massive blockades and torching cars are basically their go-to move to mess with security ops. I mean, in some past incidents, they've even attacked military helicopters with heavy weapons. That's why CJNG is often called one of the most aggressive and fastest-growing cartels in the last decade. But look, for regular people, all this talk about cartels and military ops might feel far away. But when the fires are burning on your street and you hear gunfire in the distance, all you feel is pure fear. Shops close down, kids can't go to school, parents are terrified to even step outside, and the whole economy just stops. A city that's usually so alive just turns silent overnight. So, yeah. That's the immediate ripple effect when a criminal organization as huge as CJNG decides to strike back. The death of just one leader triggers this massive wave of chaos, leaving so many places drowning in tension and uncertainty. And for Mexico, this whole thing is just a brutal reminder. The fight against these cartels, it's not just about taking down one person. It's about facing a massive network that's rooted so deep in every single part of life. It's way bigger than anyone thought. So that wave of chaos, it didn't just stay on the streets. It actually crawled its way into the airports and international flight paths. In the state of Jalisco, flying in or out became a total nightmare. The airports there were literally filled with smoke from all the fires burning across the cities. Because of that, airlines had to move fast to keep everyone safe. I'm talking big names like Air Canada, United, American Airlines, Southwest, Alaska Airlines, and Aeromexico. They all started canceling flights to the affected cities. The goal was simple: stay away from the risk before things got even more out of hand. And it gets even crazier. There were reports that flights already in the air were forced to pull a U-turn and go back to where they started. One airline, Southwest, actually told their pilots to turn around because it just wasn't safe enough to land. For the passengers, it was total confusion. People were just stuck at the airport waiting for any kind of update. Others had to just give up and cancel their business trips or vacations. And the worry wasn't just inside Mexico. The US and Canadian governments immediately dropped travel advisories. They told their citizens in places like Jalisco, Michoacán, Tamaulipas, Guerrero, and Nuevo León to stay inside and avoid any travel that wasn't absolutely necessary. The Canadian Embassy in Mexico City even put out a special warning for Canadians in Jalisco: stay away from crowds and stay far, far away from any potential riots. When international governments start doing that, you know it's serious. In the middle of all this panic, the president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, finally stepped up to give an official statement. She called the military operation a necessary step to keep the country safe. In her speech, she made it clear that security forces are on high alert and ready to take back control. She basically said the government isn't going to let this chaos drag on. The main message for the civil was basically stay calm and follow official orders. But honestly, even with the speeches, so many people were still terrified. Between the flight cancellations, the closed roads, and seeing armed soldiers everywhere, the tension was just heavy. For business owners, this whole mess meant losing money. For tourists, it meant their dream trips were ruined. And for the locals, it meant their daily lives were flipped upside down in an instant. It really shows that cartel violence isn't just about shootouts or roadblocks. It crawls into everything: transportation, tourism, even how countries talk to each other. Things are slowly getting back under control, but this whole thing is a huge reminder. When security falls apart, the ripple effects hit every single part of real life. The death of El Mencho isn't just your typical crime news. This is seen as the end of a very long, very dark chapter in Mexico's drug war. But at the same time, a lot of people see this as the start of a phase that's just as dangerous. I mean, El Mencho was one of the most influential drug lords in the entire world. His network was massive, his resources were endless, and his influence reached everywhere. When someone like that falls, the impact is never simple. On one hand, losing a leader means the central command is gone. But on the other hand, it leaves a massive question. Who's next? Security analysts, including former U.S. law enforcement agents, are already warning that the death of a cartel boss usually triggers a brutal internal conflict. When the top spot is empty, different factions inside the organization start fighting each other for control. And look, this isn't anything new in Mexico's history. Whenever a big leader is caught or killed, the violence actually tends to spike. Turf wars and fights over drug routes turn into a full-on war between groups that used to take orders from the same person. We've seen this happen before. Years ago, when other cartel leaders were taken down, instead of things getting quiet, it just created new, smaller splinter groups that were even more desperate to prove their power. The military op in Tapalpa took down El Mencho, but the fallout, it was instant, and it was everywhere. Retaliation hit different cities. Roads were blocked, cars were torched, and regular people were left living in total fear. With the state of emergency and troops everywhere, it's clear that national security just spiked into a crisis in a matter of hours. But the real question isn't about one man anymore. The real challenge is how to face a massive network that's been standing for so long with such a solid structure. This could be a turning point. If the government can keep things stable and stop a power struggle inside the cartel, maybe, just maybe, there's a chance to shrink their reach. But if an internal war breaks out and all these smaller groups start fighting, the violence could spread even further. This kind of splintering usually makes everything harder to control because you end up with so many new groups, each with their own messy ambitions. Mexico is being tested right now. Will this bold move actually lead to long-term safety, or is it just triggering a new cycle of violence that's even harder to stop? This story isn't just about taking down one cartel boss. It's about how complicated it is to fight a criminal organization with massive resources and military-grade weapons. The problem isn't just one person. It's a system. It's a network that's rooted so deep. That's why one operation isn't enough. It needs constant eyes on it, security reform, and real support from the people. Moving forward, everything depends on how the government, the troops, and the citizens work together through this transition. Is this the start of something better, or just a new chapter in a never-ending war? Honestly, only time will tell. A lot of people ask, why is the US even involved in this whole operation? Well, it's because the impact hits home for them too. First off, the drug problem literally crosses the border. Cartels like CJNG don't just stay in Mexico. Their main products, like fentanyl and other synthetic drugs, are all over the US market. And fentanyl? It's incredibly dangerous. In the last few years, thousands of Americans have died from overdoses. It's one of the most serious health crises the country has ever faced. So for the US government, cutting off the supply isn't just about foreign policy. It's about protecting their own people. Second, Mencho was a top-tier fugitive in the States. Before he was killed, he was one of the most wanted men by US authorities. Washington even offered a massive $15 million reward for any info leading to his capture. That's how much of a threat he was, not just to Mexico, but to US national security. Third, it's about the money. The US isn't just chasing them legally, they're hitting them where it hurts, their wallets. They've dropped sanctions on people and companies linked to CJNG to cut off their cash flow. No money means no operations. This targets everything from money laundering to their illegal business networks. So how does this relationship actually work? Basically, the US helps with intel, sharing data to make operations more precise. But the actual boots on the ground, that's still the Mexican military and police. The US has a direct interest because the drug trade is ruining lives back home. This whole thing is just a massive collaboration between two countries facing the same cross-border nightmare. In short, the US involvement is part of a long-standing security partnership, because when a drug network is this big and this international, no country can take it down alone.